Hey, welcome to episode 6 of the FFS Talk audio program. I am your host, as always, Dan Hugo, recording this just after midnight on January 4, 2024. Happy New Year. Today we're going to talk about the drive to excellence. Let's just say we could use more of that. The drive to excellence is one of those things. We hear about it. We don't know how to make things the way they used to be made. You hear that sometimes. They don't make it like they used to. Should we settle for others moving fast and breaking things that we depend on and need for the sake of some public valuation? Does profit trump excellence? As usual, there are some show notes with links. The first two are, as usual, shameless self-promotion. If you'd like to participate with a tip jar, ironically, as I will be touching on tipping culture. Here in Las Vegas, tipping drives the world, but I do use my buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo profile page to link various projects together. That is, you could find a basic rundown, a top-down view outside of a personal blog or other self-owned, self-published platform, which will be ideal, but sort of an out-of-band, useful way to figure out what I'm working on. And if you'd like to support in some way, money does go towards buying coffee, just like the name. And then there's the coffeeko-fi.com/DanHugo link as well. I need to figure out how best to use that. I will say the Buy Me a Coffee page, the homepage, the editing of my profile page should be on the list of things that need to be addressed in the drive to excellence, but I will give them a pass this time. But it is not a great experience. So keep that in mind. I would, were I not using the platform, be a little bit more critical bias right away. No, it's sort of minor, but the profile page for people like myself, if you go to buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, as linked in the show note links, if you go there, you will see I'm trying to make the most of the very weird formatting options. It doesn't really, and this is also true of Spotify and some other sites that publish audio program feeds like this one. The layout is left to someone else. So you enter your, show notes, headline, header text, and a bullet list, host Dan Hugo, summary, and then you go to the links and another bullet list. And when they display them, the spacing is horrible and the formatting is ridiculous. What can we expect? Not much. And that's basically what we're going to talk about today. Some other links. Simon Sinek. If you don't know Simon, you should. He's probably most well known for his Start With Why. It's a book. It is a very familiar talk that he gives. I have a link to the TED Talk he gave, which was a little bit rough, but has a sort of truthiness to it. If you are familiar, it is the version where he's using a large paper tablet to write the why, what, how, I think it is, comparing the Zune from Microsoft and the Apple iPod and Dell and Apple in making computers and so on. So Start With Why. That is a good one. Delivering Happiness is a book by Tony Hsieh, the late Tony Hsieh. Tony is a fairly well-known character in the greater Vegas area for the Downtown Project and the moving of Zappos into the old City Hall building downtown, and the impact he had on downtown, and in fact his interactions with Jeff Bezos when Amazon purchased Zappos. Bezos made some comments about how Tony was very forward-looking, and his customer-centric view of doing business was, well, it certainly made him think. Not long and hard, but he certainly did think. So he said, Bezos. So it's a good book. I read the audio version after the unfortunate accident that led to Tony's passing. I read the book as read. I listened to the book as read by Tony Hsieh. Which I think lends a little bit, whenever an author reads their own book in an audiobook format, I think it adds something. There's some extra bit that comes through their intonation, the way they deliver it. It's their words, their words, their way, so to speak. It is an interesting book. The Delivering Happiness Concept, there's a website and so on. I believe it lingers to this day, and Zappos certainly has a way with customer service, and it's a part of their culture, so that's kind of interesting. I have a link to one of many Kevlin, Kevlin, Kevlin Henney presentations. He frequently presents at software-centric conferences. This one I've linked here a long time ago. Go to 2013. Worse is better, for better or worse. I can't find it, but he also did a presentation on software tools that he uses and hates, I guess you could say. I thought it was this one, but it's a different one. But this one is still good. And it's basically, the gist is we are settling. And whether it's the development side or software in general or products in general, and I'll get into some of this for this episode, he has a couple of good presentations. If you are not into software, I think it's still relevant because you probably use software. And that's part of the problem too. We all depend on these things at this point, and they just aren't that good. And finally, as always, a link to Cory Doctorow's TikToks in poopification. I have cleaned that word up a little bit for the sake of the audio of this program. So I have a link to his pluralistic.net site. That's his personal site. The first time I encountered Cory Doctorow was when I was working at salon.com. He was a contributor, so I used to see his name, and I started reading, what's his, Boing Boing, I believe, is his project he was doing with Zini Jardin, I think it was. Anyway, so I've kind of kept an eye on Cory from about 2005, maybe. So earlier this year, he wrote this article about the path that TikTok and so many other, especially online platforms, take in the pursuit of profits. Profit first, excellence, what's that? So I think it's always relevant because, again, we depend on these things every day, all of us, to some degree. You don't have to be a software developer to appreciate the shortcomings of software development, for example. So why do you do anything? I assume you can hear the buzzing of that dirt bike, the joy of living near a street. So if the goal is to make money, if you are only doing something to make money, then the path is not always clear, but it's certainly, it has a destination, and you might even be able to see it from where you are now. The problem, of course, is that money is not necessarily the answer to everything. It may be the root of all evil. But if that's the reason, if you go to work to make money, if you sell a product to make money and that's it, well, you'll probably get what you want. The amount might not be to your liking, but you'll make your money. But do you want to make people happy? That was the Tony Hsieh mission. That's been tried, and it is always a challenge. Not everybody is on that page with you, but you can try to do good things and make people happy. You can forsake profit. You can sometimes leave a little bit of the profit on the table or put it back into the happiness part. It's a noble goal. It's a challenging goal. It is uphill, to be sure. It's not always achievable. Sometimes people are never happy, but it is a different way of looking at the world. Money first is one way, people first is another. And I think somewhere in the middle, you can still make money and you can still do good things, deliver good products and services. You can make people, including yourself, by the way, happy. You can sleep well at night, as they say. And you don't have to break the world in doing it. These are all mutually exclusive choices sometimes. So McDonald's. I first worked in my family restaurant when I was 10. I was 10 years old. We had a restaurant. I was bussing tables. I learned about cash handling on a classic mechanical NCR cash register. My dad, being the cost accountant that he was and is still, sort of. He doesn't really do so much of that anymore, but he showed me how to manage a till. So, counting in, counting out the monies, just cash management in general. And I learned how to work with customers at age 10. I think that was very useful. Later, I think I was age 16 or so, I got my first real job, not in a family business, at the McDonald's in the Metro Center Mall in Phoenix, Arizona. Metro Center was a crazy place. It used to be a mall of note. Now I think it's been mostly torn down. It could barely keep up on size and quality in general. Hey, maybe that's part of the problem, is that they didn't have a drive to excellence. They settled on just being Metro Center, and that was it. McDonald's there was a madhouse when it came to shopping. So the winter holiday shopping season, you can say Christmas if you like, but the entire month of December was ridiculous. And I worked there for that time. It was a way to pay my bills. I was there to make money. But I learned so much more. High school students are not the best source of excellent customer service. They can be. I'm not bashing all high school students, but most of my colleagues at this McDonald's were high school students. We were all going to different schools. So on the one hand, what did we know? On the other hand, we were not a group of friends all working and going to school together. So it was a nice cultural mix-up from different people in different places. Not everybody was a high school student. Some were high school graduates, and the managers tended to be fairly young. So it was a rabble-rousing group of people who were not necessarily there to deliver excellence, to deliver the best of customer service. And after all, we're making fast food in a mall. People were not showing up for fine dining. They were stopping in and then on to the next shopping adventure in what was, at the time, a extremely popular shopping destination. I did learn a lot that I would completely understand much later. Well, not much later, but essentially it's a great learning experience for the people working there. And it's something of a learning experience for the customers who will witness not exactly a drive to excellence. The goal is to get paid, though. Get the managers off your back so they're not complaining. There was always a continuous improvement evaluation system or something like that. So they would always be grading you on one of the big ones was the total time to complete or retire an order. So how quickly can you get that customer done, I guess, get their food in their hand, get the money in the drawer, and on to the next one. So there was a stopwatch, there was a checklist. So you're being evaluated, often without you knowing it. You'd hear about it later. Just let me out of here without getting a burn or a cut or other injury. I just want to clock out and go home, get paid every 2 weeks. That was the key. So you don't necessarily have the customer first attitude. Although, like I said, later, when you visit a fast food or any restaurant for that matter, once you've worked in the service industry, and this is why service industry bars and restaurants and so on will usually, they'll have a service industry night or something. It's a night of appreciation from your peers, because if you're in the service industry, you know that it is not always easy. Delivering excellence and customer service is weighted differently depending on who and where and when and all that. But it is always a challenge, sometimes a grind. And if you're in the service industry, if you are serving at a restaurant, if you're a bartender, if you're bussing tables, anything, if the customers at the table are familiar with the service industry, they know, they'll give you that look. So I'm not sure if that lowers expectations or if it gives more of a pass to some things. But either way, you do have a certain appreciation for the challenges. The problem with hardware or customer service, it doesn't scale quite as easily as something like software. I can write software once and deliver it to, well, in my case, 2 or 3 people. But if you can do something that has zero cost of copying or redelivering, right? I don't have to deliver software to your home or to your place of business. It can just show up on your computer thanks to the internet. And I don't have to pay much at all, probably close to zero, to send 1 copy to you or 1 million copies to your cube mate, right, at work, or to your neighbor. So the ease with which I can deliver my goods and services in that mode make it really easy to be completely divorced from my users and to not really feel the pain of individual customer service and implementation and so on. But if you are serving customers at a restaurant, you know every customer at every table. And if you are building something, you know you have to build one, then build the next one, build the next one. And so if you feel the pain of customer returns or we'll say customer complaints, I guess, but if you actually are on the front lines and you can feel that and you experience it, then you might have an opportunity to adjust and maybe even take it personally that you could do better or you could be part of doing better. And that actually benefits everyone because you don't have to do it again. That's not necessarily the best reason to try to deliver on an excellence goal. The drive to excellence may better come from within or just a normal human desire to be satisfied with your work. But you'll definitely feel the feedback when you have to do the same thing repeatedly, and you hear or feel the customer feedback in terms of customer returns or complaints and so on. So the software world, which of course will figure into this entire episode, the software world has removed the development process from direct customer interaction, and there are people who certainly know better, who are incentivized to deliver quickly, but not necessarily excellently. Is that a word? And we get what we get. So personally, my goal was to not serve horrible food to customers, but I was at age 16 a little bit more incentivized really to do my job. I became a crew trainer very quickly. I was only at McDonald's for like a year. It was not my career choice. So it was a way to make some money. I had a car. I had my Volkswagen Bug, which I've talked about in an episode of Quaggling Sand recently. So I eventually bought a modem for my computer, which has been another episode. So I put money in my pocket. But I did learn sort of secondarily about the joys of food service and service industry and dealing with customers and, of course, being a customer, which I think is probably the most important part. So even if you work at McDonald's or any fast food restaurant, you have a high school job, summer job or whatever. Probably the biggest take home after the meager paycheck is that you kind of learn what it's like to be on the other side of that transaction. So as a customer, have you ever noticed if you walk into a storefront, it could be food or drink or a retail establishment or something. So you walk into a place, you can tell almost immediately if you're speaking to the owner, if it's not a chain, it's not a national brand of some sort or even a local chain brand. If you walk into a place and the person looks up from their phone, asks you what you want. Now this will happen not obviously, but it will happen frequently if you go to, say you walk into a bubble tea shop or some fairly normal establishment, sometimes a coffee shop, although I think coffee shops are slightly different, which I'll get to in a moment. But if you walk into a place, especially if they have a large menu up above this employee, not very busy, so you walk in, if the person looks up from their phone and says, "What can I get you today?" or what would you like today or something, they're polite. And if you say something like, "I've never been here," well, right away, they're already looking back at their phone, maybe a little, because they know, this person doesn't know what they want. It's going to be, so they're feeling their pain ahead of time. Maybe that'll turn out, maybe not. If you walk into that very same establishment, and the person behind the counter is maybe wiping off the countertop or tidying up or checking on this or that, generally maintaining the place, making good use of available time. They say, "Hey, welcome to establishment, and how can I help you today?" Or what can I get you for today? Or what would you like? And I say the very same thing. "Well, I've never been here before." They'll say, "Well, hey, I'll tell you, my favorite is it." Or they seem almost excited about the product. Why is that? "Oh, because it's their company, their business. They're in this business for maybe to also make money, but they understand that part of that is being excellent, being visibly excellent." Thank you, Bill and Ted. So if you show excitement about your own business, you have a vested interest in its continuing success. If you only make your minimum wage or some minimal amount of money, you're disconnected from the customer experience, I'm here for my paycheck. I don't want to deal with a customer who doesn't know what they want. It's extra work for me and so on. So by disconnecting from the customer experience and the quality of service and so on, you make it a matter of a paycheck and not the larger picture, you end up with, well, you can tell that difference right away. I personally would rather go to a small business that's owner driven. So if you're a customer and you walk in, you see the owner of a business or a family owned business. I mentioned earlier, I worked at a family restaurant. My parents would enjoy the success of a positive cash flow, right? So if you are decent to people and they come back and you see them every day, that's part of a successful business. So I was more intimately involved with that. But if you just show up for your paycheck, do your thing, go home, that's it. And that will show through often. And sometimes that's enough. And sometimes the customers are just there to get their coffee in the morning or bubble tea or whatever. And they're fine. They know the menu. They just got to get in and out. And if you deliver on that, great. Is that excellent? It's the minimally viable customer service, I suppose. The difference between the owner and employee, though, is sometimes vast, sometimes painfully obvious. And it really does come down to the visible delivery of excellence. The drive to be excellent and the delivery of that excellence can be seen. And if we look beyond the storefront, the retail experience, food, drink, products, services at that level, if you look at larger scale, do you ever wonder why everything we use and interact with and depend on seems to be less and less impressive on an ongoing basis? Now, when the new car, the Cybertruck comes out, or the latest iPhone, there's always emphasis on the new and shiny parts, the novel surprises. I can throw in a reference to Raymond Lowe, if you like. Minimally advanced yet acceptable. So you do something that's cool enough to impress, but doesn't necessarily become so cool that it drives people away. Like, oh, I don't know what that is. I don't want to try it. I'll let someone else try it. So they're impressive at first, but then over time, maybe you've started to realize like, the latest iPhone is okay. I don't really use that cool new feature, which was the reason I paid $1,000 to upgrade from my previous phone. The stuff that I was using and depending on is slightly less reliable. The battery life is a little bit better because it's a new battery, but now it's starting to get just like it used to be. How come I can't replace the battery in this phone? How come I always have to, there's all sorts of things that you start to wonder, why am I not enjoying this as much? But I still need the phone. I still rely on the communication, the internet access, the access to information, the ability to conduct business, to discover other things that are not as excellent using my pocket device. So these are just the ways things go. And if that's the impoopification theory from Cory Doctorow, is that eventually profit motive drives everything. And it's not about delivering an excellent product anymore. It's about delivering product to shareholders or business owners in general. And if you look at McDonald's, which is a real estate company, by the way, not a food company. But if you look at something as simple as McDonald's, and I say simple just as a customer walking into a McDonald's, do they really want you to enjoy your dining experience? Well, they make the dining rooms explicitly less comfortable so that you don't stick around too long. They are not necessarily delivering you the finest of ingredients. They're good. McDonald's is the number one consumer, I guess, of any food product on their menu. Onions, cheese, beef, chicken, whatever it is. McDonald's ingests vast amounts of these ingredients. So they're not awful. They're not the worst, lowest quality. They have the money and the volume to get good stuff. So it's okay, but it does come down to accounting and profitability. It's a public company. And so they're delivering on a acceptable level of customer service, and that is not always enforced. So your customer experience is not always amazing because there really isn't a drive to excellence. There's a drive to get the customer in and out according to a timer, make sure their food is reasonable, make sure the hot side is hot and the cold side is cold sometimes, if that ever worked. But it's not really about you having a great visit to a McDonald's so much as you being yet another customer, get in, get out, on to the next one. But how does tipping culture affect that? I mentioned I've worked in food service. I worked as a busser, cash register person at a family restaurant. I've worked in other restaurants, McDonald's, etc. I can't say I've made a career of it, but I've certainly been on that side. And as a customer of many places, I've certainly paid tips to people for what they do. I think one of the problems is that, and this is never more true than in America, and in some states explicitly true, employees are not well paid, and so it is left expected to for the customer to make up that difference. And so some states will pay a special minimum wage for job roles that include gratuity options. That's strange. So rather than paying employees a fair wage, you allow the customer to pay the other part of a wage. So the motivation then is to try to get more money through tips. So you will offer customer service in exchange for money. So that's still not a drive to excellence, it's a drive to more money. Yes, the customer will probably feel some, increased benefit. If you're a good tipper, you'll probably have a better experience. But ultimately it comes down to, as some people would describe it, a bribe. You're paying explicitly for some level of customer service that others don't get if they don't tip as well. And is it self-serving? Probably. If you look at buyback scenarios, then definitely. If you're not familiar, if you are a good tipper, especially at a bar, if you tip the bartender really well and you suddenly find your drinks are a little bit stronger, maybe some drinks didn't get charged, that's the buyback. So you're tipping. That money goes into the pocket of the bartender, and sometimes they share their tips with the other staff. But you're paying the bartender directly, and in exchange, they're giving you product from their employer. Now, if it's the owner of the bar, that's different. That's it. All the money ends up in the same pockets eventually. So a small neighborhood bar, owner behind the bar, great. But if the employees of an establishment are exchanging product for tips, the tips go in their pocket. The product comes out of the bottom line of the establishment. So the buyback is ultimately a form of stealing, but it is self-serving. It is exchanging something that they are giving away for something that they are keeping themselves, and you as a customer just enjoy the bonus, and it kind of breaks the model. I will go when my favorite bartender is there because they give me free stuff and I just have to tip well. That doesn't benefit most of the other people there. My favorite bartender is not working. I will not go there today. My favorite other person that works in any establishment is not there. So it's self-serving from that perspective. It doesn't necessarily help the business, and in fact, it can cost the business money. So tipping culture turns a team effort into an individual sometimes grift, right? Not a huge fan. If you travel the world and you learn from people that American tipping is weird, the perspective is useful. It's useful to have. Not an anti-tipper, but, well, I am sort of an anti-tipper from an economic standpoint. But I do see where tipping can cause actual problems in the drive to excellence. It provides a different motive for any sort of drive to excellence. It goes back to money again. So money. But tipping culture is complicated. There's tipping out, so sharing your tips with the other staff members on a particular shift, especially in a particular section in the case of a restaurant. There's tip pooling. Who participates in that? There was a sort of famous Starbucks manager case that got eventually overturned about whether management is entitled to share in a tip pool. I believe, if I recall, it was initially, no, you cannot, because you're the manager. And then later, I think the appeal and overturn was if a customer reasonably, not expects, but if a customer would believe reasonably that you are providing the same services that everybody else is, whether you're a manager or just a barista, it shouldn't matter. And so if customer expectations are met, you should participate in the tipping pool regardless of your job title. So that is yet more complication, so I won't go into it further. Hey, I'm in the back in the kitchen. I'm preparing the food that will ultimately, nope, you're in the back of the house, front of the house, totally different. So a A lot of stuff goes into tipping culture that may or may not be visible to we customers, but it does add to the mix of whether the drive to excellence is about money. You would think it would be a common trait among all the people at a restaurant or a retail establishment. By the way, do you ever go to a tailor or a dry cleaner and tip the person because they went and got you your clothes? Like, hey, thanks for measuring my inseam correctly. Here's an extra 20. Hey, thanks for getting me my dry cleaning. Here's $10. So there are certain tasks, certain job roles where it's expected, others where it may not be. You can tip anybody you want, even if there's an anti-tipping policy. No tipping accepted. Well, there are ways around that. But I'll tell you, as a software architect, I never get tips. I sometimes get a coffee, hint, but that is not quite the same, and the expectations are very different and this is why there's a minimum wage for job roles that have gratuities in some states, Arizona being one of them where I grew up. Like, you can make a minimum wage. Oh, wait, if you work in a restaurant and you're a server, we're going to pay you, $1 less per hour or something like that. I think it was about $1 less. Maybe, yeah, I think it was like $3.15, $3.25. So somewhere in there. Restaurant, okay, you get $2.15 or $2.50 or something an hour, with the expectation that the customer will make up the difference. So there again, you're buying the service. And if your entire team, front of the house, back of the house, the owner, the management, everybody, if you're all there to make a good experience for your customers, to have a nice evening, nice day, nice breakfast, whatever it is, you should all benefit. If you do great things together, you should all benefit. Personally, I'm a fan of more of a profit sharing scheme. So rather than individual tipping, if you all have a above average night or morning or whatever the interval is, you should all benefit from that, because a true team effort does not reward individuals for what is a team effort. Like, if you want to give away a product in exchange for a tip, and that product comes out just the way the customer wanted because the back of the house, the kitchen staff truly delivered for you. Do you share that tip with them? Maybe not. But did the business get paid for that? Maybe not. So the drive to excellence, once again, comes down to money in this case, when actually the joy of teamwork could be a component of an overall satisfactory day. And yeah, some financial benefit could result. But it could also be that sense of team, and team is important. In fact, it might even be an essential component often overlooked in a drive to excellence. That is an entire culture of collaboration, which is probably essential. So we are the problem, in my opinion. So what can we do? I think I've done there are so many cases of examples. So I've kept it to sort of retail or normal stuff. If you want to get into software, I did mention Kevlin Henney. I think it's Henney or Haney. I can't remember. He goes into why the companies that deliver on the shiny new thing faster will benefit. The move fast and break things mantra at Facebook sounds, oh yes, disruption, and it's so cool that they're willing to, wait a minute, that's us. They're breaking our stuff for the sake of profit and impoopification. So by being novel and being first, the first mover advantage gets rewarded financially. But at the end of the day, are you, as the customer / user, benefiting, or are you just sort of dealing with what you end up with? We're excited by that first mover. The biggest feature, the newest, the shiniest thing, the reward is not necessarily, for us, quality and excellence. It's just, ooh, shiny and new. And the reward for the purveyor of such things, profit. So they're not necessarily doing great things. They're making great money. We give in. We demand less. We're happy with what we get. And we're tolerant of what we do not. What are you going to do? Like, hey, my Android phone battery life sucks. Oh, we'll just go to the Android forum and on the Google whatever and post, and maybe you'll get a response from someone who may or may not represent the company. That's the best you can do. So much of our product and services culture has come down to peer-to-peer information sharing. Like, oh, how to make this work? Oh, I do this. I put this in here and I move that, or I go buy a different thing. Or, oh, if you need a replacement part, don't even bother calling them. Go here. So it's always a question of workarounds. I just need this to work. I don't care how. I'm not going to hold the company accountable. I just need a meal in the next 30 seconds. It's good enough. It doesn't have to be amazing. It doesn't have to be, I spent $1. I don't even think they have $1 menu at McDonald's anymore. I spent $1 on a burger and it was okay. On to the next thing. I just have to feed my kids in the back seat. Feed them Happy Meals. It'll keep them quiet. They will probably get type 2 diabetes at some point, but otherwise, all good. I'm just being funny. I'm not saying that McDonald's or any other fast food restaurant causes any disease. We demand less, though, and that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem that we are in this entire transaction. We tend less and less to solve our own problems. So by going out or by having someone else do something, we accept the results. The results may be suboptimal. If the drive to excellence does not start with us, it won't reach us from somewhere else. If good enough is good enough, or as Kevlin says, if worse is better, for better or worse, then we get what we get. And then we do it again. And so we end up in the impoopification trap, and that's it. So personally, they don't make them like they used to. I'm so glad I don't own a car. Ridiculously expensive, very difficult to maintain yourself. Hey, I come from the Volkswagen Bug world. I would slide under my car every month and adjust the valves and set the timing and change the oil every couple thousand miles myself. And, very easy to maintain your own car back then. Nowadays, good luck. You need your ODB2 connector to get anywhere. And then you probably need some proprietary software. So you might as well bring it to a mechanic who may or may not care. I still cringe every once in a while. I once saw a car driving away from a Jiffy Lube with oil, not necessarily shooting out of it, but not a drop or two. So very clearly the oil nut in the crankcase was left loose. They're driving away. What are you going to do? That person's gonna have a dry oil pan down the street, and we'll see what happens. So the drive to excellence starts somewhere, but it must also end somewhere and then loop back on itself. And everybody has to sort of be a part of that. And if we're willing to accept less, then we get less. And then we're willing to accept that. And so we'll get a little bit less, and so on. And then we end up with X, formerly known as Twitter. So what can we actually do about this? Personal opinion, of course, your mileage may vary. We can't settle for things. Especially more with technology, everybody's coming out with the newest thing, mostly to satisfy investors so they can exit and return profits to their initial venture capitalists and angel funders and so on. The technology becomes essential, so we need it, but we tolerate awful implementation. And we don't understand what is happening, what is supposed to happen, why it's happening. The costs and the risks of these things and the unintended consequences are left to chance, and we end up struggling to deal with my phone doesn't work, or no coverage, this or that, whatever it is. And you end up with subpar, tolerating what you have and then moving on to the next thing. We have to stop doing that. We have to hold people to account. And if you use the food example, there's a common perception, and it may be true, that you never send food back because who knows what's going to happen to it. That's just another example, a worst case example perhaps, of a vindictive drive away from excellence sometimes. But it should be a question of, and I always say this of food trucks, if you've ever worked with people with food trucks, the owner is probably right there. You're probably talking to the owner, or the owner is on the other side of a thin piece of sheet metal. Hey, this is cold. This is undercooked. This is, the rice is overcooked, whatever it is. Oh, let me fix that for you. They probably want you to have a good experience. They're probably not. Now, if you go to a food truck owner discussion board on a Facebook or similar, you may find some complaining, But a person who stays in business knows that if someone comes up and says, hey, this is not quite what I was expecting, the best answer is, let me fix that. One of my favorites is somebody said, hey, some kids came up to my truck, my food truck, got some ice cream, and one of them spilled the ice cream fell off the cone. Would you give them a replacement? And just the fact that someone asked that question is ridiculous. No, you should definitely let that kid be upset and crying, so that parent will leave you a 5-star review somewhere. For the cost of an ice cream cone, you can retain a customer. You might even get 5 stars in a good way, real 5 stars that says, hey, yeah, my kid dropped ice cream and they gave him an extra, for what does a scoop of ice cream cost? A couple cents? The return on that is amazing. So you can be excellent to people, and the side benefit is one you will enjoy later. But yeah, why would you even question that? But it comes up, strangely. So of course you want to have customers that want to come back. That's the difference between a customer and an employee with customer service. The employee may be there for a paycheck. The owner of an establishment is there for the customer because they know that customers coming back is their business. It is their business. We can demand more. We probably should. But from whom? Who at Google are you going to call? Famously, and I'm not even going to go search for this, but famously, Jeff Bezos, again, was at some forum somewhere, and a customer stood up and said, hey, I want to do this, that, and this didn't work. And Bezos was tripping over himself to, make sure you contact this or that or whatever to try to address that customer service problem. Unfortunately, Jeff Bezos and Amazon does not do the same sort of attention to detail when it comes to employee experiences, injuries at warehouses and so on. So the question is, how do you balance that? Because you definitely want not to need to contact the CEO or founder or whatever the role is of a particular entity. It'd be nice if you could just say, hey, this didn't work. Can we fix it? And then they say, yeah, let's fix it. Could be food, drink, product, service, whatever it is. So we should demand more, and we can be nice about it. But unfortunately, social media rants. Let me make a YouTube video real quick, or let me do a TikTok and I'll show a video of, here's the instant message I received from so-and-so. There's this call out culture. So ranting on social media then gets picked up by other media and reported on as though it is news. And of course, gotta include the view count. You can find them every day. I'll just make one up. This is a total invention, but based on true events. Woman finds hair in hamburger. Company refuses refund or something. And then the article, many more words than should be written. And let's say a woman finds blonde hair. Blonde-haired woman finds blonde hair in hamburger or in any food. How about some Asian food? And company refuses to return. Now, actually, that's a true story. Go to a Thai restaurant, in my real world example that actually happened. Like, hey, there's blonde hair in my tom yum goong soup. Well, everyone that works here has black hair, and you've ordered soup that has lemongrass in it, which is very similar to blonde hair, and you have blonde hair. Nope, there's a hair in my soup. I want a refund. So, so of course that person will post today on social media. They'll get, the TikTok video has been viewed 400 million times, and comments were, yeah, you should get your money back, but no, you have blonde hair. So it just becomes a free-for-all melee of chaos. What comes of it? Who knows? Nothing good. But that becomes the way, and I've done it too. I've posted on Twitter when a bus is late, which happens all the time. Doesn't get anywhere. Doesn't do anything. There's some mild satisfaction knowing that you complained and someone responded, but we ultimately don't demand enough. We accept what we get. A structured approach, a bug database for the world might help, but that requires more effort. And it's so much easier and satisfying to post an angry quip on a TikTok or a YouTube or your favorite other social media platform and get lots of views and likes and agreement. And that is in some way satisfying. Even though it doesn't fix the problem, it only makes your brain chemistry feel better. So yeah, we need to actually demand more if we're going to encourage a drive to excellence. Make the drive to excellence the goal, not shutting up the customer, getting them out the door, in and out with their money left behind. That's all we care about. That's sort of where we are. And if we don't demand more, we're never going to get more. And as so often is the case, the first step in addressing this, as with everything, is admitting that there is a problem. And there is. So we should demand more. We expect less. Guess what? We're going to get less. And if we don't demand more, we'll get even less the next time. And this is never more true than in my career field, software. We accept what we get. We get awful platforms. We get awful features. We get awful user experience. We get real bugs. We get security breaches. Our personal information stolen and sold on the dark web, the deep state. It's always somebody else. We should hope for more. We should demand more. We should expect more, and ultimately, we should get more. More people should do the McDonald's experience. Again, once you work in the service industry, your interactions with people in the service industry will be different. You will know. The same could be true of anything. As a software developer myself, I don't like software. And so I cannot possibly, in the same breath, suggest that we ship a product with known catastrophic bugs and then complain about some other company shipping products with known catastrophic bugs. But that's where we are. So yeah, we need to demand more. I hate to say it, it sounds horrible. We are the problem. We allow it. And so it happens. And it happens more and more. We allow it more and more. The drive to excellence is currently stuck in traffic. Let's change that. Let's make that happen. Let's start doing it here in Vegas, and we'll see what we can do. 40 million visitors. They should have a good time when they come here and go home thinking, Vegas has it figured out. Think about it. Thank you for listening, as always. You can buy me a coffee if you want. You don't have to, but buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo is also where I have links to my other audio programs. Let's Innovate for Vegas for our Innovate for Vegas Foundation, which is a nonprofit. It's a 501c3 charity, actually. And we are talking about doing cool things here in Vegas for the 40 million people that visit here and the 2.3 million people who live here in Clark County. The Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program is all about being entrepreneurial and innovative in the greater Vegas area and maybe beyond. The Quaggling Sand audio program is basically stories, hopefully with useful content and endings. And of course, this program, FFS Talk, is ideally about what works, what doesn't, and what we can do about it. This being the new year, I just wanted to get this. It was on my mind, thought I would share. Any of these audio programs are guest friendly. If you ever feel like you want to be a part of a conversation that I've been having with myself in front of a microphone, you should. I'm always one to talk and even do things. But I'm even better talking to others, possibly about doing things. So come on down, join an episode. Let's talk about starting businesses, being innovative, weird stories about computers and fast food, whatever you want. It could be anything. In the meantime, I hope you are having a fine 2024 so far. We are in the first hour of January 4th as I'm about to wrap this up. Let's hope the remaining 361 days are just as good, if not better. Don't settle.